everyone, this is Stray. So for today's video, I want to go over the topic of how to continue having a conversation, how to always have something to talk about, and how to start a conversation. So for me, I love to talk. I really love to talk. I enjoy conversating. I enjoy getting to know people. I enjoy just exchanging ideas and learning about people. So let me share with one of my jobs. Share with you, for about 7 years, I worked at the nail salon. And, I am holding people's hands for 30 minutes or people's feet for 30 plus minutes, up to an hour sometimes, if they do both services in the same day. And I see roughly minimum 5 people up to 10 people a day. And I do tend to conversate. I laugh because one of the receptionists would say, "Story takes forever. Every time you give her a client, she's always talking and she doesn't do the nails." Guilty as charged. But I just enjoy getting to know people. And I'm gonna go over some pointers of what I learned along the way when it comes to customer service experience, and also just applying that everywhere in my life. I currently work in corporate, and I had to learn how to incorporate that in social settings with different types of people. And I'm going to share the tips and tricks that I've learned of how to connect with different people. So at the nail salon, if you're in customer service or anything of that sort, what I've also learned is sometimes you don't remember everyone's name, which is fine. We are one person and we see like 10 people a day, and we're looking at their hands or feet. We're not really looking at them. So one of my mistakes was confusing people's names. Like I called someone, I think Stephanie, when their name wasn't Stephanie or something like that. So I definitely learned not to call people by their name, especially if I'm not sure. And I think this person let it slide, but they didn't really come back to me for their service again, which is fine. So I would start conversations not like, "Hey Stephanie, how are you doing?" I would say, "How are you doing?" without saying anything specific or their name, or if you think of a story of them, let them talk. A big tip is letting them talk. Say, "How was your day?" Because that's the type of question that anyone can ask, right? Don't say like, "How's your vacation?" because what if they didn't go on vacation, you're thinking of someone else. How was your day? How was your week been? How are things? And if, depending on what they say, you can stem off of that. "Oh, my day was good." "Really? Why was it good? Like, what'd you do?" If this person is talkative, it makes it easier because then you can just ask questions about what they say. "Oh, I went to the mall, and then I went to see my sister, and then now I'm getting my nails done." "Oh, did you buy anything at the mall? What mall did you go to? What were you doing there? Was there a lot of traffic? We saw your sister. How was that? Did you enjoy it? What did you guys do? Did you guys go to the mall together?" You see how many questions I just made up around the spot? So the trick here is to ask them general questions first, and then ask deeper questions as they tell you. And this will vary. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes people just don't give you a lot. But you can try to stem off of that. Another thing is maybe try to find a commonality between you and that person. I remember one time I was speaking to someone about their wedding, and the commonality we had was their wedding was going to be held where my high school prom was. And this person wasn't from my area or anything like that. They just ended up picking the auditorium where my high school was and where we had our prom. So, we started talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, I went to the same high school in that town. That's where we had our prom." And I asked him, like, "How are you going to decorate that?" And then, I love decorating and I love talking about design. So I was like curious on, "Oh, wow, like you're going to have the reception there, or are you going to use the stage?" Because it was an auditorium. "Are you going to bring your own decorations, flowers, things like that? How are you going to bring the food?" We had food, but we had catering to us, and we all went to get our food. And, is that what you're going to do? Or are you going to have waiters bring food to the table? And then ask them how they feel about it. Ask them open-ended questions so they can talk. Because when they talk, you can listen and think about like, okay, maybe I want to know about this topic a little more so I can ask them about that topic. And as you're asking these questions, you can add in any commonalities. So like the auditorium situation, I was like, yeah, we had my prom there, and we had a chocolate fountain, which is a real thing. We had a chocolate fountain there. I wonder if you guys are going to do that. I wonder if it's a part of the package. It's a really beautiful auditorium. I said things like that, which was my true opinion. I did think it was a very beautiful place. You know, I asked about the parking situation, like, are you going to park across the street? Because I think that's where we parked for prom. And I shared how my prom was, basically, and then I asked them like what they're doing and what they like about it and what they don't like and what are they going to add and what theme and things like that. So it's a lot of asking questions, but also catering to the person in front of you and what they're saying. So that was more of a social setting. Now let's kind of put it into a work setting. Like, you know, you have to be appropriate in certain questions that you ask. You can't get too personal, but you know, there are appropriate things you can ask. For me, it was a different demographic when it came to work. It was a different age group, different background. And some of the things I would ask that I also did at the nail salon was asking about people's kids, if they had kids. I wouldn't straight up ask like, do you have children? You know, but if we got comfortable enough where they talked about like, oh, I'm gonna pick up my child today or something like that, that's when you can say, oh, how old's your child? Things like that. Kind of let them let you in. Don't like ask too specific questions, but open-ended questions about their life that is more so, how are things, you know, they're going to allow or not allow to talk about it. You can also talk about very generic things like, do you enjoy sports? And if you have an idea, maybe they enjoy sports. Sometimes if it's like, so I'm a girl and when I meet another woman, I might notice that they like makeup or things like that, so I might bring that up, be like, I like makeup, like I don't say it like that, but like, oh, I like your eyeshadow today, or I like your bracelet today, and then we kind of talk about that and have that commonality. And when you do that, it makes people a little more comfortable to be open to you and share more things, which then you can ask more questions about and relate to. And again, a lot of my coworkers are on the older side, not older end. I am in my 20s and my coworkers tend to be 35 or older. And my clients also were too, my nail salon, and we would just talk about their children, you know, like, oh, they're in high school. And sometimes they would ask me for advice of, you know, I have a daughter that has this problem with their boyfriend. How would you handle it because you're close to her age? And I would give my advice on that, you know, give them examples of like, yeah, when I was that age, I was boy crazy too. But I tend to, you know, as I got older, I realized that that's not that important anymore. And I realized that that's not the person for me in the future. And tips and tricks of what I would approach it from someone younger to a parent's side. And that's where some of our conversations had. There are people who don't have children, so therefore you can find some commonalities of interest. Like one of my managers, he's into sci-fi. I actually am too. So we started talking about different movies and what he liked about that. And he was into traveling to a certain extent, so that was also a common thing for me too. And we would talk about that. I would ask about that. So therefore, it's kind of more so ask open-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions, such as, how is your day? How are things? If you know things about them, for example, if they just moved into your department, how's it been transitioning to your department? You know, what was your background like? Like, what was your company like? Are you happy you're here? Or do you have any questions for me where you need some help adjusting to? I've had colleagues move from a different country, so I would, you know, be like, how has moving to America been for you? Do you need any help finding certain restaurants that you're interested in, that, you know, if you like certain ethnicities of foods? And I give them a list of things to do and places to visit, things as that such. And when you do things like that, especially at work, you don't realize that sometimes that really could make someone's day, because I know at work sometimes we don't feel like we have friends, and so when you are being a friend to someone in that extent, they might really, really appreciate it, and you don't know what you've done for them, and that could leave a really good relationship to grow and have a friendship with at work. Now I'm gonna move to social settings where it's at a party setting or a social gathering as such. That one just really depends the crowd. Sometimes there are people in the room that I don't talk to at all, just because, you know, they're too far on the other side of the room and we don't have anything to talk about, which is okay too. But a lot of the times what brings us together is drinking. So when you cheers, just say cheers to somebody, and then even if you just have juice or water, it doesn't matter, right? But sometimes I just ask people like, oh, where are you from? Like, where did you grow up? What city are you from? And if I find some commonalities on that, if I know someone from their city, if I know someone from their upbringing. I understand sometimes people have a hard time being asked how old they are. So if you are comfortable asking that, be like, oh, you know, are you around so-and-so's age? Especially if you're at a party where someone's hosting it, right? Are you around the host's age? Like, how did you know the host? I try to steer away from work questions because I think it's kind of boring sometimes to talk about that outside of work. But if you want to do that, like, oh, you know, like, what industry do you work in? If you want to make it general, and if you care more about the industry, then ask more about that. You know, you could also ask, like, what do you like to do for fun? What are your plans after this party? How are you enjoying the party? What type of, depending on the music, if you guys know what the music's going on, like, do you like this song? I kind of like this song. Like, is this a song? Do you like it? So there's really no, like, cookie cutter question that you can ask at every single party. You just kind of have to feel the party and understand that this is the demographic that you're in. And a lot of the times I ask questions where people can answer me first, and then I stem off of that. So if someone says, like, hey, some of my interests is I like reading books, I like drawing, I like the beach. If you have anything in common in that area, I would say, me too. What beaches do you go to? I like to go to so-and-so beach. Do you ever like to travel outside of the country to experience, like, the Caribbean beach? Or have you ever been to the European beaches, Asian beaches? Even if you haven't gone, there's nothing wrong with talking about it. Being like, yeah, I've always wanted to go to Asia. I've always wanted to go to the Philippines. I see it so beautiful on Instagram, or wherever else that you use on social media. I've seen videos and the water looks so beautiful. So that's if someone likes the beach, you can ask stuff like that. Music, you know, if there is a commonality in music, you can just ask them what type of artists they like, what type of music they listen at home, or like their energy levels, things like that. I'm not a big music buff, so therefore that's not my conversation starter usually, but if that is yours, you can use that to your advantage and talk about any of that. My tip is to not over talk. If you want to kind of get to know people, you want to let them talk a little more than you, because we don't want to come off as, you know, a know-it-all. I understand you might know it all, and that's okay, but I just know that for a first meeting, it's a little intimidating to just have someone come up to you and just talk at you for like 30 minutes. So therefore, I found a technique where it's more so asking questions to getting to know the person in front of me, and for them to talk a little more than me, so that they feel like someone's interested in them, and they feel like, oh, this person is keen to me, this person cares about what I think, and such. They want to build a relationship with me, and they care about what I think or what I like and don't like. That is a very good technique, especially if you don't have a lot to say. Asking questions that stem off of questions that stem off of questions is a technique that I advise you guys if you want to be able to have a conversation with strangers. Because if you're just talking about what you like, and if they don't like it, they're just awkwardly listening, and then they might not want to be rude and just go right, you know what I mean? Like, have you ever been in that situation where someone comes up to you and talks about the guitar for an hour, and you don't play the guitar, so you don't know what they're talking about, but you don't want to be mean, so you're just going you don't want to be in that situation either. Therefore, ask them questions, where they're from. You can ask, like, what industry they work in, do they like it, what type of foods they like. I know that's a topic I love talking about because I like to cook and I like to cook to eat. I don't actually like to cook, I just like to eat it. But cooking is cheaper and it's easier because it's catered to my liking. But talking about that, I love talking about that because I love food. I love talking about maybe even like sports or activities. For me, it's more so what sport did you play when you were younger. I don't actually watch sports now, but I did play sports when I was growing up. So I like to kind of razzle dazzle and be like, oh, did you guys know I used to do shot put? Everyone's always surprised by that one. I actually did do shot put and I was pretty good at it. For those who don't know, it's the 8-pound ball. For girls, it's the 8-pound metal ball. And you don't really throw it like a baseball. You glide in the circle and have to stay in the circle and push it with your momentum. And that's what I did in middle school and high school. And I was very good. Not super great where I was like going to be a professional, but I was good for like my league. I always usually placed, which was cool. So sometimes I like to share that information because I know everyone's always shocked because I seem so girly, but that doesn't take away that I played sports. And trying to find commonalities, depending on what their interest is, like astrology. Sometimes that's a pretty common topic, like, oh, what's your sign, and people like to share that. And then we go into party talk about like, well, this sign means this and this sign means that. And talking if they have children, like, oh, how old's your child? What's it like being a parent? How do you like it? And you also have to kind of gauge someone's tone of voice. Like if they seem very excited when you ask these questions, that's probably a great topic to keep asking about. But if they seem uninterested and they just say one or two things, probably they don't want to keep talking about that. So therefore maybe back off of that topic a little bit. So gauging as you're talking to the individual is very important. Facial expressions such as I'm excited, like you're going to talk to me about food. Oh my god, I love food. Clearly I just said I love food. Good indicator that it's a good topic to talk to me about. I'm excited, right? I'm happy, I'm elevated. Oh my god, I love food, I love cooking, I love tikka masala, I like making pho, I like making stir-fried lakla, and I love sushi, I love this, I love that. So if I were to talk to someone like me, I can tell that I'm talking about all of these things that I like. I would say, oh, what kind of sushi do you like? Do you like raw sushi? Do you like cooked sushi? Do you like to go to a specific sushi restaurant? Do you ever make sushi at home? Would you ever visit Japan? Things like that. Would you, so I know that people like to eat white rice with seaweed. So it's like, do you ever do seaweed and just rice as a sushi dish? Do you ever make your own sushi bowls? I found so many recipes of like a salmon sushi bake online. So for me, that's how I would angle it, right? And be like, I would ask Srey, what's your like top 3 favorite dish? Why do you like it? Have you learned to cook it? And spice it up and say, if you can only eat one meal for a year, what would you eat and why? What have you learned to cook? Or if you haven't learned to cook, what do you want to learn how to cook because you like that dish so much? So that's how I would approach talking to someone like me, because clearly Srey loves food and Srey loves every dish in the world, so I would attack it in that sense. But if Srey's like, yeah, food's okay, I eat it, it's probably not what you should keep asking Srey about. I would kind of move on. I'll be like, okay, so like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, what are some of your interests? Or and you can go off of that, whatever they say, because hopefully when you ask that question, what the most like top 3 things they say is probably what they really like to do. And then you could ask questions about that. And then you could relate your stories to what they say, and then you could talk about your personal experiences with that and how you dealt with that. And if there's a open-ended opportunity to give advice, maybe you can give some advice on like, oh yeah, I experienced that too, and I found the best way to do something is this. For example, let's just say that I'm someone who wants to go into a basketball league. in the city and you're someone who has done it, that's a good opportunity to be like, oh, I did that. And this is how I signed up. I talked to Joe and I signed up on this website. Let me give you their contact. Maybe we can play together sometime. So that type of advice where it's not advice where you're just throwing random advice and hoping it sticks. It's advice that you know means something to this person. So that will vary, obviously. But if you can find opportunities to give advice that does create a relationship with people, and again, it should be authentic, it should be something you actually know about, or even if you don't know about it, maybe you can do a quick Google and be like, oh, I think I heard about this is how you sign up, and then give them pointers. And that's kind of a gesture of you're going out of your way, and you know, people will feel like, oh wow, thank you for the generosity, help. Usually that's what you would hope. And then you can just do basic things like, what drink are you having? Do you like this drink? What are you eating? You know, like, are you guys doing anything after this? Whatever the case may be, and then go off of that. So, and again, this takes energy and effort. This is something you kind of have to turn on. I know I do. I am sometimes introverted, sometimes extroverted. It's a mood I have to be in for me to be that person that asks all these questions and conversate, and then, you know, live identify like, oh, this person's interested in this and this person's not interested in this, and then this is what I should ask about, this is what I shouldn't ask about. I don't have too much advice about people who are just quiet because if they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk. Then you gotta let that be. It doesn't mean they don't like you, it doesn't mean anything, it just means that maybe they just don't feel like it, they're tired from work, etc. Or they could just, you know, be high sometimes and they just can't even conversate. So I wouldn't take that one personally either. But, you know, move around the social setting and try to see who you can connect with, and then see the commonality of it. And I know a common thing is to talk about what's going on in the news, what's going on with sports, if this team won. I know currently a big topic right now, because we're in the month of, I'm recording this video in the month of September 2024. So a big topic is Kendrick Lamar performing at the halftime show. So I know that a lot of people that I'm around would be interested in that. We do like the rap beef, and we do like talking about the music. Therefore, bringing that up, you know, a lot of people usually have something to say. If I'm around people who don't know about that, I probably wouldn't bring that up unless they like music for some reason, and then I can explain it a little more. Again, you just have to read the room and kind of understand what the commonality of that demographic is. You know, because if you're in a room full of early 20s, it's very different than early 30s. Because music might not translate. I remember doing karaoke with someone who was 20, I want to say like 21, I think she was 23, around there, and I am in my late 20s, and I brought up Mariah Carey as a song to sing, and she didn't know any Mariah Carey songs, and I was like, oh you know, I was like, oh wow, Mariah Carey is like a classic for what I thought all of us, but I forget that I'm aging, right? She was a teeny little baby when Mariah Carey was probably the I Belong With You song, We Belong Together and all that, Obsessed, whatever. And I was like, okay, so, and I brought up Usher. She didn't know Usher, and I was like, oh, okay, so music might not be something we can probably talk too much about. Like, I don't know a lot of her music taste, and she doesn't know who I'm talking about either. That's kind of where I might have to switch to a different topic. A lot of times food is a little bit easier throughout any generation and any demographic, and asking about their type of food and what they like. And if you're someone who is willing to try, it makes it easier to have a commonality. Again, sports, if you're in a room where majority of the people you know actually like sports. I don't, so it would be kind of hard to talk to me about that. But that's just a tip that I know that with men, that's a little bit easier. If you want to talk to a girl and then they're kind of dressed like me, talking about their hair or makeup usually is a good starter as well. And then you can ask them about that, and then you can stem off of that and more and more. So really, the main method that I would advise is to ask generic questions that you can come up with, such as how's your day, how's your week been, how's your month been, how's your year been, and whatever few points that they give you, certain highlights, remember that, and then ask questions about those that you can relate to the most. Because if you can relate to it more, you have more to share and more to create a bond over, and then you can stem off of that and talk deeper about that topic. It can be from work, it can be about anything. And then, ask genuine questions that you're curious about. Like, don't just do it just to do it, but if you're actually curious when they bring up one topic, be like, oh, well, can you tell me more about this? You can just do it like that. Like, oh, tell me about that. Like, how was that experience for you? What was it like? That's really interesting. You don't have to lie and say, I want to experience it too. Just say, that's really interesting. Like, tell me about it. How was it for you? How did you feel when you were going through that? What did you learn? Would you recommend someone going through that too, or trying that out for themselves? Where do you, depending on what the topic is, like, what location is the best place for this type of experience? Where would you recommend it? Or like, where would you not recommend it? Should I not go where you went? Or do you know anywhere that was the worst experience ever? So those type of questions actually can go for many, many, many topics. I would jot that down. So that's an overview, kind of how to conversate with different types of social settings, and what I've learned being a nail technician for 7 years and dealing with the public. I also worked in retail, but you're not conversating with people in retail as much. I was a cashier in retail. Being a nail tech, spending so much time with one individual, you do get to know your client, and you get to know who they are, and you get to know, if they're on vacation, they're breaking up with their boyfriend, things as such. So that's something I've definitely acquired and learned, bringing on to other aspects of my life in social settings, at work, working in corporate, parties, or just a social gathering where I'm meeting new people. Yeah, I really hope that really helped, because I think that I am someone who talks a lot. Therefore, I really hope that teaches people maybe kind of how I've learned how to talk a lot. I also just really enjoy it. I enjoy talking. I enjoy it so much, which is why I'm on YouTube. But coming from someone who talks a lot, I really hope that this helps someone who maybe doesn't talk as much and they're looking for some few pointers of how to approach a conversation, especially with strangers. And you can use this, of course, with the people you know already, just to strengthen the bond a little more. If you're someone who doesn't talk as much with the people around you as much, these are some of the techniques and questions you can ask them to build on the relationship that you already have with the people around you. It doesn't have to be with new people, but it can be conducted on new people or people you already know. And it's a great way to get to know people and just see different aspects of these people and their feelings about it and what their thought process is, and you really get to know someone's brain a little more. Yeah, and if you have any questions, maybe a few more specific questions that you want me to answer, please feel free to leave it in the comments, and I can make a video off of it to go a little further about that scenario. You can also reach me on Instagram as well. I'll put it in the description. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you can do that too. Yeah. So thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have a nice day. Bye.